Imagine this. It's 1993. Sarajevo. Your neighbor, a banker before the war, is standing at your door. He's holding a pure gold necklace. In the old world, it was probably worth 2 months of salary. And do you know what he wants in exchange? A pack of cigarettes and 3 Bic lighters. Not a joke. This really happened. And what I'm about to tell you will completely reshape everything you think about financial security. By the end of this video, you'll understand this. $1,000 spent the right way can protect your family in ways that $10,000 in gold never could. Let's begin. This story comes from a man named Selko Begovic. He survived more than a year during the siege of Sarajevo. And the most disturbing thing in his account is this. He watched people with gold starve to death. But people with practical skills and basic tools, they survived. I know what you're thinking. Come on. Everyone says gold is the ultimate insurance. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. I've said it too. But when you look at real economic collapses, not theory, not speculation, but documented reality, gold ranks far lower than you think. Skills, land, tools, community. I call it the Amish Hedge, and the data confirms it every single time. Let me walk you through the cycle, because this has happened before, in multiple countries, and the story is always the same. Currency collapse happens much faster than you think. In Bosnia, the transition from a normal money-based economy to pure barter took months, not years. Months. Selko documented how prices multiplied 20-30, even 100 times within weeks. A pack of cigarettes that cost 1.5 German marks outside the war zone? Inside, it cost 40 marks. Venezuela since 2016. Inflation exceeded 1,000,000%. The government gave people 72 hours to exchange their currency before declaring it worthless paper. 72 hours. Think about that. Your entire life savings, 3 days. Argentina, 1998 to 2002. The economy contracted 28%. More than 50% of the population fell below the poverty line almost overnight. Same cycle, same stages, same outcome. When currency fails, only utility matters. Right now, today in Venezuela, fishermen are trading their catch directly. Not for money, but for food. Not selling, bartering, direct exchange. One fisherman put it perfectly. Money doesn't buy anything anymore. So it's better for people to bring food. Farmers walk hundreds of kilometers carrying bananas and yams to exchange for flour and pasta. Hardware stores accept coffee beans as payment. 3 100-kilo sacks of coffee equals 200 liters of gasoline. This is economic regression. Modern collapse pushes societies back to pre-industrial barter. And in that environment, gold is useless. You can't eat it. You can't burn it for heat. You can't use it to purify water or treat an infected wound. But the person who can grow food, the person who can repair a water pump, the person who stockpiled antibiotics, that person survives. Land and skills trump everything. During the Great Depression, farmers struggled with low crop prices. Some burned corn for fuel because it was cheaper than coal. But those with productive land had one irreplaceable advantage. They could produce their own food. Documented experiences from rural Iowa show farm families grew large vegetable gardens, canned fruit from orchards, produced milk and cream from dairy cattle, supplied themselves with meat and eggs from chickens, made clothing from flour and feed sacks, zero cash income. They survived anyway. Urban families, poverty, and hunger. In Dubuque, Iowa, 2,200 workers lost their jobs between 1927 and 1934. Even those who kept their jobs saw wages drop 30%. They faced hunger because they had no production capacity. One of you left a comment on my last video, and this is priceless. My grandfather survived the Great Depression because he had a small 4-acre farm and carpentry skills. Not gold, not savings, land and skills. Here's the wild part. Victory Gardens during World War II proved this on a massive scale. Over 20 million gardens were planted in 1943. They produced 10 billion pounds of food, 40% of the entire U.S. vegetable supply. And by 1944, more than half of Americans growing gardens reported doing so out of economic need, not patriotism. The math is simple. Farmland produces income, crops, rental value, direct food, regardless of economic conditions. During the 2008 to 2009 financial crisis, farmland increased 17%. The S&P 500 declined 46%, not speculation, insurance. Skills became survival capital. Depression-era survival strategies read like a catalog of practical production. Caught and sold fish. Made homemade candy and sweets. Grew and sold berries. Started food carts. Made and sold hand-woven baskets. Mended and altered clothing. Rendered lard. Butchered animals. Preserved food through canning. Notice the pattern. Every single one creates or processes something of tangible value. The highest value skills were those addressing fundamental human needs. Food production and preservation, clothing production and repair shelter improvement, healthcare, mechanical repair. A person who could slaughter an animal, preserve meat through smoking, or can vegetables had income-generating skills that no economic collapse could eliminate. Doctors, nurses, dentists. They didn't become unemployed during the Depression. People found ways to pay them, trading goods and services for medical care. Here's what gold advocates miss. A skilled carpenter is a walking asset that cannot be locked in a vault. The skill exists in the person and can be deployed whenever needed. Gold sits in a safe producing nothing. If you're starting to see the cycle here, leave a comment below. What skill are you developing for economic insurance? Selko's testimony reveals the truth. When currency became worthless in Sarajevo, certain items emerged as the most valuable. Ammunition ranked highest, needed for hunting and self-defense. But Selko warned, whatever you sell to another person, as a weapon may be used against you the next day. Security dominates all trading decisions in real collapse. Hygiene items held remarkable value. A bottle of bleach could purify hundreds of gallons of water. A bar of soap that cost 50 cents before the war. It traded for a dozen eggs during the siege. Medicine held extremely high value. Antibiotics, pain relievers, first aid supplies. Many people died from lack of access to basic medications. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Selko recommends owning 1,000 Bic lighters instead of a fuel-powered generator. Let that sink in. A generator costs thousands. Why lighters? Because a generator makes noise, attracts attention and thieves, consumes scarce fuel, requires maintenance, is a single point of failure. Lighters are silent and portable. Distributed across multiple units, can be acquired. Cheaply right now can be refilled. Selko had a large propane tank rigged to refill disposable Bic lighters. He traded filled lighters for food, candles, and other necessities. A lighter provides fire for heating, cooking, and light. In a siege environment, these functions are non-negotiable. And here's what blows people's minds. Gold and jewelry held poor value during the crisis itself. Selko notes that warlords took precious metals from desperate people at a can of soup value. They understood metals would retain value once the crisis ended, but they were worthless for immediate survival. This isn't historical theory. It's happening right now. Venezuela's collapse is ongoing as we speak. One woman grows eggplant, tomatoes, and passion fruit in her backyard, specifically for bartering, exchanging them for pasta, sugar, milk, or rice. She noted this lifestyle mirrors how her family lived in the early 20th century. One fisherman stated, "I haven't been to the city center in almost 2 years. What would I do there? I don't have money to buy a shirt. I'm better off here swapping things to survive." Official currency became so worthless that the effort of wage labor wasn't worth the return. In Zimbabwe's parallel collapse, black market medicines exploded. A single dose of amoxicillin could be worth weeks of wages. Think about it. A person with a pound of silver couldn't use it to treat an infected wound, couldn't eat it, couldn't burn it for heat. But a bottle of antibiotics, literally the difference between life and death. If you're realizing that everything you thought you knew about economic security is backwards, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is Financial Forensics. I perform autopsies on dead empires so you can see the patterns before they repeat in your own backyard. If you're positioning yourself for what's coming, drop a helicopter emoji in the comments. Community networks determine who survives. Studies across 148 research papers with over 308,000 participants found individuals with stronger social relationships had a 50% higher chance of survival. 50%. That's comparable to quitting smoking. Selko emphasizes this. Almost all trades were made through private arrangements after getting information about someone who had something to trade. The best situation? If you already knew that person before the war. Trust built in advance. Trust-based relationships become economic infrastructure when formal systems collapse. One of you commented, Amish communities that share and help each other. Community is the one thing missing from many survival strategies. Exactly. Communities with established structures, neighborhood organizations, churches, mutual aid networks, coordinate response and pool resources far more effectively than isolated households. For practical preparedness today, this means developing relationships with neighbors, participating in community organizations, building trust-based networks. Social capital is survival capital. The comparative analysis is brutal. Let me show you gold's fundamental problem as a collapse hedge. In the Bosnian siege, where the economic system collapsed most completely, gold held virtually no value during the crisis itself. Why? Because gold produces no income, addresses no immediate survival, need is inedible and non-functional, is only valuable if someone else wants to trade for it. Food feeds you. Tools let you produce and repair. Skills generate services people will trade for. But in the early stages of collapse, when people are desperate for food, tools, and medicine, gold is not what they want. During the 2008 to 2009 financial crisis, farmland increased, 17% E&P 500, declined 46%. Gold initially declined before recovering farmland provided stable income throughout, rental value, crop sales, direct food production. Here's the brutal math. Average farmland volatility, 1992 to 2020. 6.84%. S&P 500 volatility, 16.9% gold volatility, 14.8%. During periods of high inflation, farmland returns average 14.67% annually, more than double the average inflation rate itself. Not theory, historical fact. So where are we seeing these signs today? Venezuela, stage 5, complete collapse. Barter economy, currency worthless. Turkey, stage 3, advancing. Official inflation understated. Gold accounts doubled as citizens flee the lira. Lebanon, stage 4. Banks froze accounts. Currency lost 98% of its value in 18 months. And the elephant in the room. The United States $38 trillion in debt. Congressional Budget Office projects deficits indefinitely interest payments on the debt. Now, exceed defense spending. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet has expanded by trillions. Since 2008, central banks globally are buying gold at the fastest pace since 1967. One of you commented, "My only bone to pick is this. This assumes currencies collapse one at a time. I think we're looking at a general collapse of Western currencies within a couple of years." I agree. For the first time in civilized history, 100% of the world's currencies are fiat, none backed by gold or anything real. With global interdependency, the destruction of major currencies will likely happen simultaneously. Domino effect. Systemic failure. So here's the question that actually matters. What are you going to do? The Amish Hedge. 5 elements. 1. Acquire productive land if economically feasible. Even small-scale vegetable gardens provide meaningful food production capacity. Communities in Venezuela adopted rooftop gardens and backyard food production out of necessity. 2. Develop practical skills in high-demand areas. Food production, gardening, animal husbandry. Food preservation, canning, smoking, drying. Repair skills, carpentry, plumbing, mechanical. Medical knowledge, first aid, basic nursing. These skills cannot be stolen, only degrade through disuse, and remain valuable regardless of economic regime. 3. Accumulate practical goods with direct utility and long shelf lives, medical supplies, tools, batteries and lighters, hygiene items, preserved foods. These maintain their utility regardless of economic conditions and become barter currency in collapse scenarios. 4. Build community networks, explicitly and seriously. Participate in community organizations. Build relationships with neighbors. Establish communication networks. Identify people with useful skills and resources. 5. Hold some precious metals for optionality. But only after you've secured the first 4 elements. Gold provides no value during the crisis itself. The evidence from multiple documented collapses, Bosnia, Venezuela, the Great Depression, recent U.S. recessions, converges on one consistent conclusion. When monetary systems fail and institutional support collapses, survival depends on productive capacity, practical skills. Community networks, not gold, not savings accounts, not financial assets. The question is not whether it will happen. The question is whether you will be ready when it does. If this forensic breakdown gave you a new lens on what's coming, hit that subscribe button right now. This video was inspired by your comments on the last one, demanding practical survival assets instead of financial theory. If you're already positioning yourself for what's coming, drop a helicopter emoji below and tell me what you want me to dig into next. Some of you are already there. My grandfather survived the Great Depression because he had land and skills. We emptied our savings account completely and put everything into precious metals. That's a start. But make sure you're balanced across all 5 elements. The only question is whether you'll see it coming, or be standing in line wondering how bread costs 200 billion marks, while the person next to you trades a dozen eggs for a loaf because they own chickens. Now go diversify before you're forced to. See you.